All right. Awesome. Let's do it. It's going to be real natural, real normal, sweetheart. Mm-hmm. It's going to be good. This is already making the extras. I can tell. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. Today, I have the most important guest that I've ever had on the podcast, on the channel, and yet she's not a guest. She's always in the background. She is the Durham Talents. So I have my wife in studio today. Darling, I'll go ahead and tell you I didn't know for sure that I was going to be able to make this happen, which I think just speaks to your love to me for sure, and your willingness to put yourself out there in uncomfortable situations, new situations. But my wife, Lauren Durham, is here to sit down with me to talk about our infinite banking journey. This is going to be partly, and I told her this is going to be partly for our own memory. This is going to be partly for our own legacy. This is going to be partly for us to reminisce, partly for me to have a structured opportunity to ask her about her perspective of our infinite banking journey. And I think it's going to be really interesting for me and very valuable for you. If you're one of our clients, I mean, this has been a long time in my mind and my heart to do and to facilitate, because very often I am on the phone and Zoom calls, etc., with one individual from a family, and that individual has maybe read R. Nelson Nash's book, watched my presentation video, found me on social media, whatever the case might have been, and they have a spouse just like I have a spouse, and they have a family like I have a family, and it's a really interesting thing to hear about someone's exposure and their vetting and their implementation. So for all these reasons, I've been looking forward to this episode more than any other. And you're certainly, darling, going to be the prettiest episode that we've ever had. So why don't you say hi to the sweet people?
Hello.
Awesome. I'm telling y'all, as much as I would say that I am an empowered introvert, I mean, you know this. So on anything that I say, this is going to be great. This is going to be one part of what's cool about this. If you feel like you could call me out on anything that I say, or at least add a new perspective, because I know you're not trying to chop my knees out from under me, but I want you to feel comfortable in saying anything that does come to your mind that would be different than my perspective, that would add to it, whatever you want, okay? But I feel very much like an introvert in a lot of situations, and yet here I am, on YouTube and podcasts and videos and speaking live in front of rooms and all different kinds of stuff, where I have over years now made myself more accustomed to doing that. Whereas this is your first time sitting down with me for a recording, and I've been recording for years now. We've been recording for going on 5 years, telling people that they can become their own bankers. But let's do this. I'm gonna start this conversation easily, just like I do all the others. So let's just go back to our beginnings, right? And we can go fast in some of the beginning stuff. If you want to share something, share something. If I want to ask something, I'll ask something. But you were born in Texas. I was born in North Carolina. You had a family. I had a family. So a common question maybe that I would ask people about from childhood, what was the money conversation like in general for you growing up? So think young kid, maybe even young adult, right? Before we went to college. So maybe before we get to college years, let's say. But what sticks out to your mind? What do you recollect or what do you remember about thinking about money or thinking about anything financial?
Not really much at all.
Not really much at all. And both of your folks have worked for themselves, very independent folks, very hardworking folks. We love them, obviously. And with that being said, they were doing something that is kind of atypical for many people. Now, you know that we have clients that are, they're in a career and they have a job and it's very set and standard and they've got a clear-cut trajectory. Lots of our clients as well do work for themselves. So I had the opposite background. Just for folks that might be, hearing about us or infinite banking or all this for the first time. My mom was a homemaker didn't work outside of the home. And my dad, blue collar, factory type work, right? So we have both of those backgrounds represented, I guess is what I want to say. And you, much like me, didn't have much money conversations. All right, so what did you absorb then? What was anything that you just experienced by osmosis, just by living and growing up? Anything at all that sticks out to you?
Save as much as you could and get what you needed when you needed it.
Okay, awesome. So if I did a quick jump up to when we got married, let's say, you'd been a better saver than I was.
Definitely.
See there? She didn't hesitate. I said, I tried to give her a little grace about not chopping my legs out from under me. She just did it, right?
Yep.
Right there. So you were. I'm trying to give you credit. You were. You were a much better saver than I was, and that played into a cool part of our story that I'm going to mention just for posterity's sake. And I think it'll be neat for everybody else too, because we've used infinite banking now for vacations before, for lifestyle elements, which for us, vacations had been a priority from the start, I guess. When we got married, we did a big 40-day, 40-night cross-country trip, camping, nice hotels, hot air balloon. But you showed up to that with some savings, is what I'm underscoring too. Whereas I'd worked ever since I could work. I'd worked hard, worked outside, worked with my hands, and spent money where I wanted to spend money, and I did spend it. So I didn't have quite so much of an influence to be a saver at any point. I had one older brother who did start things like getting a bank account, getting a savings account. Every now and then we'll talk about things like a CD. I learned about what a CD was because of an older brother. Okay. We tithed at our church, and then that's probably pretty much where the money message stopped for me. But you obviously still picked up on that one big thing of it's a good idea to save money.
Correct.
All right. Anything else stick out to you?
Not really.
Okay. Well, for anybody that's interested, we had a bit of a relationship in the 7th grade, actually, just to give more background. Mm-hmm. Short-lived. She was mean to me then, too. It's a funny story. I circled back, and we started courting. We have 3 children now, so that's the word that I like to use. We started courting in high school. So we dated all through high school. Mm-hmm. That's when I would have been working hard and spending everything that I wanted. We would have been going out on dates, right? The movies, the theater, all that stuff. The steak dinners, all that normal stuff. Get the Valentine's gifts, all that stuff. You were saving, I wasn't keeping any of it. But I kept the real treasure. We go to college. Both of us did some conventional financing. You, with your grades and your academics, you would have qualified for more grants and such.
Right.
So maybe if you paid some, which I think you did some, right? A little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Still had some that you paid off. Mm-hmm. What'd you go to school for?
Nursing.
Yep. So you've been a registered nurse for how many years now?
17.
So I remember all the flashcards and the quizzes and those types of things that I would have been helping you out. You were much more studious than I was. Okay, but financially speaking, conventional. Had grants, worked hard, paid off. Now, you paid off just before we really did anything, like learned anything new financially. By the time we got out of college, you just were working and paying the student loans off, right?
Yes, right away.
Right. And then I had some that lasted longer that we did actually use policies to pay off. I still had 2 student loans by then for us to pay off. So, all right, so you went to college for nursing, went right into that career. I went to college for law enforcement, or criminal justice was the degree, and Spanish, had student loans as well. We got married just a few months after getting out of college. Went on the trip. You had some savings. We got some gift money from the wedding, of course. And I'd been working. I still worked all through college. I would have as many as 3. I remember having 3 jobs at a time while double majoring. Now, I'm not saying that I did any better on the savings part. Like that's what's interesting to look back on is I'm double majoring in college, fostering this relationship that I know where it's leading to. and working 3 jobs on the side. I mean, I was a part-time law enforcement officer. I was a tutor. I was an RA. I would do landscaping over the summers again when we'd be back home and stuff like that. So we graduated, go on this trip, and then it's nose to the grindstone for some years is what I would say. It was just us, decidedly. We were enjoying some years where it was just you and I, okay, before children. We both knew that we wanted to have a family, but also it seems like, so just reflect on any of that, if you would, for me. The financial aspect or the relationship aspect of our college years, working, school, any new money messages that you picked up there, getting married, starting in on our careers, because they were both real set careers. Mm-hmm. You were going to be working 12-hour shifts as a nurse. I was going to be working 12-hour shifts as a sheriff's deputy. Anything from those years?
I can't think of anything new,
right,
or that you hadn't already mentioned.
So what would you say in your own words would have been the game plan at that time in our life?
Save and get financially comfortable to where we would be able to start having children.
All right. And then tactically, what would we have done to accomplish that, to save? Like, where did we save?
A traditional savings account.
At a bank.
At a bank.
Yep. But what else was taken out of our checks? See, this is really interesting because maybe you're thinking that I'm focusing just on banking and the transition to infinite banking, which is fine and good. I
eventually had a 401k.
Okay, that's one thing that I was looking for.
So did you.
All right, so that's one thing that I'm looking for. And I don't know if you know this, actually. So when you and I would have gotten jobs, we would have had to have opt in for a 401k contribution. Nowadays, you're automatically opted in and you have to opt out if you actually don't want to contribute to a 401k. That's a big change. But I bring that up because that was for sure. I mean, I don't know what it looked like from the nursing perspective, but I can remember as a teacher, for example, when I was teaching Spanish in North Carolina, once a year in the library, some financial professionals walked out there and they do a spiel. All right. That would have been the word I would have used back then too. They're going to give some spiel about you should do this and you should do that and numbers this and retirement age that. And I tried to do the things that I thought would lead to a good result. So, yeah, I checked the box and I did something. Paid into a 401k would have been, for me, part of my check would have automatically gone to a state retirement, actually, both as a cop and a law enforcement, as a cop and as a Spanish teacher, both of those state jobs, that would have been an automatic thing. Did you have an automatic retirement?
I feel like yes.
Contribution so I was thinking so as well. So we're running on default is how I would put it nowadays.
Yes.
We were told to do this. We did this, which was go to school, get your degree, enter the field, have the savings account, sure. Have the 401k that you contribute to. Okay, the state's going to take care of us on the back end with X, Y, or Z too. And then anything else?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I would say that's it. And there would have been some things along the way that we would have financed with a bank. Whether it was a car would be one example. Family car, we financed that with a bank. We also paid for a vehicle cash. So like some things we would just end up paying cash for, whether it was a cruise, we're going to go on an anniversary trip and we would just pay for that, right? Like our 3rd year anniversary cruise, good time, great time. We paid cash for that one, if I'm remembering correctly, just to give an example. But then there would have been some things that we would have used a bank for. All right. So here's where I'm really interested in your perspective in our story. We'd followed a really conventional route in all aspects, I would say. General finance, career, which is interesting, especially since both your folks have worked for themselves before. I didn't have any kind of self-employed influence that was close to me in my life. I had family members now, looking back, friends from church or whatever that were, but it wasn't close enough to me to impact me, I guess. So I definitely just saw the career path is the way for me, since I wasn't going to go into the military, since I was going to be a homebody husband, a trophy husband. And, but in 2015, a lot of things fired off for me. And here's where I want you to be able to describe, well, I just got roped into it or whatever.
For sure.
Okay.
Oh, what's next?
Okay. What's next, right? Because there were a lot of things. So Jacob was born in 2013. We were still both working and probably working full time then, more or less, until it was time for, you to have some paternal leave or, and we began having those conversations about how much time are you going to spend at home or work or whatever. We've gone all the way to, fully homeschooled now. You take some part-time work, which is really cool because we can kind of compare our schedules and it keeps your skills sharp and you get to help people and you're working in your field, still doing in-home healthcare stuff, which is awesome. But it's also allowed us the flexibility to be able to homeschool and do the things that we want to in that regard. But then in 2015, Josiah, our second son, would have been born. And in that year, 2015, second son's born, I walk away from teaching full-time in the latter part of that year, which was a big move. Now, you can say what you want to right here. Part of me now would be scared to go back and try and say, oh, I changed this or I changed that. A logical part of me would say, should I have pursued that career a bit further, even though my heart had changed to a different direction? I saw an entrepreneurial avenue that I did pursue full bore, which was in the travel space. A load of fun. Love to talk about that. But started a significant business for myself for the first time. And then within a few months, got an invite because of the business connections that I had to a presentation where Brent Kessler from the Money Multiplier was doing, who I didn't know at the time. But I was told he's going to do a presentation on becoming your own banker. And I saw an hour and a half long presentation where this former chiropractor paid off right at $1 million, right at $1 million in debt. Now, I did. You weren't there, so I'm painting the picture, and I'm wanting you to come in here anytime you want. I see this presentation because I was invited to a room, and then I was encouraged to read this book, Becoming Your Own Banker, by R. Nelson Nash. I got to ask some questions there, and that led to phone calls and more conversation later. So that's where I want you to jump in and say, how do you look back now on your perspective of being exposed to infinite banking? What do you remember? What did you like? What did you not like? What sticks out to you now? If you can go back to, how did I act? How did I talk? What do you remember?
I remember it quite clearly, coming home, sitting down on the couch talking with me about it. And you were obviously excited about it, something that you were looking forward to doing and was excited about right away. Of course, in my mind, I'm sitting here going, okay, here we are again. What's this about? And I was very skeptical about it, but because it was something you were excited about and wanted to do, I was like, okay, let's do the thing. So I can't remember if we actually got started on yours before you took me to one of Brent's presentation or not, but I feel like yes. And then we got
You feel
mine,
like we got started first?
and then
and
we
then
got
you
mine,
saw a presentation?
and I saw after we saw the presentation with me.
So did you then only hear me talking about it or sharing my revelations or whatever word of mouth until we got a policy and then you later saw a presentation? Mm-hmm. All right. What about the book? When would you have, and I don't know, this might be a first. Well, here's where I'll say you've listened to the book before because I would have had the CD version and we're driving down the road and I'm all about education, self-education. So you've heard Becoming Your Own Banker, but have you ever sat down and gone cover to cover?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't remember that. I wasn't sure. And I thought, this is going to be interesting.
Yes, I read the book.
Okay. Can you remember when in your exposure that you read it?
I believe after you and I both have a policy before we got the kids'.
Okay. So I saw Infinite Banking in 2015 from Brent, asked questions, was encouraged to get the book, heard from a couple of people that I knew in that business, the travel business at the time, asked them questions. I did read the book. I did get the audio version and listen to it in the car. We got the first policy because I was excited. I mean, we did everything from a yard sale just because I was motivated. And I started selling stuff that I'd bought, all that money that I'd spent
Yes.
on toys and fun things and whatnot, because I was just that fired up. So I'm not saying that's the way to do it. I'm not saying it's not the way to do it, but mentally that's where I was is, listen, we're going to do this with these qualified plans that we have. And again, I'm not giving advice here. I'm talking with my wife, sharing our story, because some people are going to keep things that they already have, assets, qualified plans, investments, whatever. And they're even going to keep funding them the way that they currently are when they're exposed to infinite banking. Some people will keep what they have and change perhaps how much cash flow goes to those things. And then some people say, nope, I don't want to wait till I'm 59 and a half if it's a qualified plan. And that's where we were. I mean, we were so early on that we didn't have so much in them that it was too big of a mental hurdle for us to bite the bullet on, the penalties and the fees and all that kind of stuff, the taxes and whatnot, to say, well, we want access to it now because we're in our very early 30s at that point. Mm-hmm. And we can make up for that over the next 30 years. And that's a pretty cool thing that we could talk about too. But we did have a yard sale. We did, probably look at a budget. We did have conversations about, what banking is and definitely what infinite banking is. And for me, I always tell people it was like seeing the Matrix movie for the first time. It was just a big red pill, aha, light bulb, revelation type moment for me, where I was exposed to all different kinds of things that I'd never thought about before. I never thought about the qualified plans. I mean, when Brent was at the front of the room saying, I bet you only know two things, if you know anything at all, about your qualified plans. And he said, maybe you know how much gain or loss you had last quarter because you checked the mail and you read your statement and saw whether it went up or down. Maybe you know that. And he said, and the second thing is maybe you know if it's on a low, medium, or high risk setting. And I did. I did actually know those two things because I opened the mail 4 times a year and read the thing, and that was it. And I didn't know anything beyond it. And I remember how aggravating it was, even though I wanted to do it. I remember how aggravating it was to be paying those penalties and fees for getting to money that we'd put at risk without really understanding what was going on. But so all these things were happening at the same time is what I'm saying. We're in our first year in business, and then I come to you with another idea of, yes, hey, this is a great idea. So anything else then that you would say there about, what went through your mind? Was it a positive thing? Was it a neutral thing? Was it a negative thing? How high was your skepticism radar? What did you like about what you were hearing from me? Like, I still want to be there, I guess, before we're getting to, you getting a policy within another year or two of us first seeing infinite banking. Where were you at between your ears?
I was very skeptical. I didn't want to do it, honestly, but because I saw how much you wanted to and how excited you were, that's why I was okay with it at the time.
So I can get that, and I can appreciate that. What about what you saw or heard were you skeptical about? Can you pinpoint anything or recall anything?
I think it was just because it was something new, and I wasn't sure about it because I just didn't understand it completely. Therefore, not understanding it made me iffy about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Very neat. Very neat. All right, so 2015, we're exposed. Do some months worth of, when it's all said and done, we saw it in 2015, got the policy in early 2016. after the yard sale, after the qualified plans, after we'd been in business for a little while, we'd actually gained some significant ground in our business as far as, moving up the ranks, so to speak. And by the time that we pulled the trigger on getting a policy, and all right, so how do you reflect back on how much premium we paid relative to how much we were earning?
It's a lot.
Is that part of where the skepticism or iffiness?
Definitely. For sure.
So again, this is one of those times, just like launching into business. And anybody if you've gone into business for yourself, you know the hurdles that you still face. It's an ongoing process. Looking back now, there's a part of me that says, did we bite off too much? Part of me could say that. Another part of me can say, no regrets. We are where we are learning wise because of what we did, right? But then also knowing what I know now about taking the, I don't want to say taking the burden on, but it is. I mean, premium within measure and a lot of measure that you control is a burden that you take on, meaning there's a capitalization phase, and you can look at it much like business. In fact, Nelson says in the book that you should look at infinite banking like business, which with you and I coming from career in the box backgrounds, there is a lot of skepticism or iffiness to overcome for business or anything that's unconventional. I mean, you're literally going against the grain. You're literally doing something that nobody you know, meaning like nobody you went to church with, go to school with, grew up with, was, in second grade with, like none of that stuff. They're not doing it, and you're doing it.
Right.
So that in the box mentality, there's so many things to break through. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, the way I look back on premium also, though, is knowing now what it means for us to put $1 into a policy that this year it's its 10th year. Now I know what that does. Death benefit goes up, cash value goes up, we can earn bigger dividends, we have access to a bigger pool of capital than ever in that policy because of what we did decide to pay, which was a significant percentage of our cash flows at that time. And that's not new for anybody that's listened for a while. I talk in the same parameters that Nelson does. Premium should be an imaginative number. It should be an ambitious number. I even use this kind of phraseology. I don't know if you've heard me say this, Lauren, that if it doesn't make your spouse raise their eyebrows a little bit, it's probably not a sincere enough number.
It did a lot.
It did a lot. Okay, see, there you go. But then also it should be offset with, okay, but we've talked about this. We've looked at our financial footprint. It's also a reasonable enough and a logical enough number. Those are the descriptors that I use when talking through premium. It should be ambitious enough and imaginative enough to actually move you towards your goals and maybe make somebody raise their eyebrows, but also make sense for you at the same time. Okay, neat. We use that first policy. Like one big thing is debt. That's what I saw first and foremost priority-wise when I got that first policy after seeing a presentation where this guy paid off $1 million in debt. I said, our $50,000, and I've already done a video on this. We've got a life lesson series on the channel, and it's called Debt Recapture, because it's not just about getting out of debt or paying off debt if you're going to do it the infinite banking way. Anybody can get out of debt by doing the debt snowball. That's it. Go to your smallest debt, pay it off as quick as you can, then go to the next one, Great. But recapturing your debt, what I learned about what Brent did with $1 million and what I wanted to do with the $50,000 of debt that we had at that time, student loans, credit cards, family car, was that not only could we pay the debt off, but we could be building this asset that we're going to own for our whole lives along the way. And then let me interject this piece. We actually had, just in case somebody's never heard this before, we were trying to do things well financially, even though there were lots of areas where we could improve on. And when I say we, I mean me. She's the saver, and I was the spender. Still is. I mean, that's still the relationship. She'll message me, y'all, about less than $20 stuff. It's funny in a way. right? Anything you want to say there? I mean, less than $20 and you'll text me about
Yes, I
it.
will.
It's
I don't know why, because I know what you're going to say, but
You do.
I do.
You do. You know what I'm going to say. Get it? Now I forgot again where I was going. But here was the piece that I was wanting to add. We had whole life insurance before seeing Infinite Banking.
Mm-hmm.
I had intentionally gone out to a company in our hometown. I went and did the traditional thing. Went to the box store insurance company, talked to the box store agent, and said, "I want life insurance," because I didn't just want the work stuff. I mean, we were at that. So going back a little bit, we were putting money into 401ks. We were working. 12-hour shifts minimum. Like minimum
for sure.
Yeah. And then we went out and got insurance when we had Jacob. So I got a policy on me, policy on you, policy on him, and it was whole life insurance, and it was even from a mutual life insurance company, which is really interesting for me. So what I remember from that is thinking, permanent, I'll have it my whole life. I like that. That's one thing that I remember. I don't know about you, okay? So tell me what sticks out to you, but whole life insurance sounded good to me. It has a cash value. Okay, so it's not just like my work stuff where it's term and that comes out of my check. And yeah, if I go this year, Lauren gets money, but it has a cash component. Oh, neat. It does that. Awesome. Let's get that one. Right. And then we actually got 20 pay, which means you only pay for 20 years. Because I liked that that set amount of time where I had a goal essentially to work towards. Oh, okay. By the time I'm this age, no more premiums. Oh, okay. By the time our son Jacob, because we got one on him as well, our first son, by the time he's this age, no more premiums. That's awesome. We get those benefits. Guaranteed death benefit, cash value that we can tap into, leverage if we need to along the way. And we only have to pay for 20 years. Now, my mindset's changed on that. But what I'm saying is I saw the value of whole life insurance. We were trying to do things the conventional way. We're exposed to this idea, and I see a way to get out of debt and recapture money that used to go to all these other people and us keep it instead while still building a legacy of a guaranteed windfall to our heirs, to our beneficiaries. So that's where I wanted to mention that. We were trying to do things well. We saw a better way, though. I saw a better way. And then she was roped into it, and she was supportive, very supportive, while still being skeptical. And that's why I like saying that part out loud. Yeah. Okay. So we had the first policy. Debt was the number one priority. We started paying things off. Anything that you remember there? Like we're on that last phone call with the agent. We're looking at a policy illustration. We're getting ready to write a significant check, send some serious money. Probably the biggest check we had written to date.
Yes.
Probably the most.
Was.
And that's saying something, I think. Anything from that time frame stick out to you, other than probably the big skepticism still, maybe even more, big iffiness still, even more. But anything that you remember?
I just put it all in your hands at that point. I don't remember a whole lot other than skepticism.
Okay. I found that now as a professional in the space, helping people implement infinite banking and just being aware of these things. I found that to be the case almost all the time. I mean, you know this. I love getting on a phone call with a family, getting on a Zoom call, and we got a whole family on there. Love that. But normally the case is that one spouse is more into, they've got the Excel sheet at home. They look at the budget. They check the bank statements. They pay for things, right? Like that kind of stuff. And they're just more interested, typically speaking. I found that to be the case. What about after we had the policy? What about after we made a policy loan? What about after we paid something off? Anything change for you?
I definitely started seeing the benefits of it slowly. And I'm, of course, actually seeing a presentation. Somewhere along that time frame also helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. So again, tell me, you already said it, but you do believe you saw a presentation before you got your policy?
I believe so.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, we would have been paying some things off, You had a chance to see the presentation for yourself at that point. Again, you probably heard at least part of the book, if not the whole book, in the car when we'd be driving somewhere. And again, I've got a life lesson episode where I actually show some visuals of, here were the student loans, here was the car note, and these types of things that we've done now. So I would encourage you to check that out. When you got a policy on yourself, anything new?
I don't know that anything had changed at that point yet.
You're just down for the cause.
Yeah.
No, all right, but no reservations about more premium.
Yes,
Okay,
there was.
yeah, okay, so yes, still on that part. Because
Yes.
again, significant number
Yes.
for us. At that time, significant, well, I would say for
Literally
anybody still,
doubled it.
actually.
So
Yep, we doubled the amount of premium that we were paying. That's it. So thank you. But also, I would say this. I revisited the same reasons. Number one, it worked. Meaning the company took our premium. When we made a policy loan request, they sent the money. Mm-hmm. We did go out and pay off a thing. We did have our second son. So we had both sons. I misspoke earlier when I was giving the timeline. You should have jumped in there and helped me out. By 2015, both boys were born, actually. So by the time we were exposed to infant banking, both boys had been born. I guess maybe I didn't misspeak earlier.
was just born.
Right. When we got the regular whole life insurance, Jacob had just been born. But by IBC time, 2015, Josiah was born as well. So it made sense. What I'm saying there is, in my mind, legacy-wise, protection-wise, security-wise, have a policy on both of us for the death benefit. Mm-hmm. That just made sense. And then, yes, to be able to pay more premium, to be able to do the banking faster and more aggressively, I was ready for that as well. So we got that policy 8 months after my policy. Just to put a timeline to that. And that's not going to be the same for everybody, but that's our story. And then we just used those policies for some years after that. All right, so what sticks out to your mind that we've used policies for? What did you maybe like most? Was there anything that you learned along the way by information or application that was good? That anything? Hurdles? Anything?
I guess as I got to see it in motion and we were paying off things and we were getting statements showing what the death benefit looked like, and I started seeing that we were using the policies and the death benefit was still growing. And I guess that was when I was like, okay, maybe I get this. Maybe I see the benefits of having this. It's money that we're going to be spending anyways. Mm-hmm. We were going to have to pay that debt off anyways. Mm-hmm. But now we have that debt paid off, and we have a death benefit that can go to our children when that time comes.
Yep. That's definitely a cool thing. Something I wish I'd have done earlier is some of these visuals that I shared at our family meetings where I show, here's where we're at now. This policy has this death benefit, this cash value, this outstanding loan, all of it. And we've built a system now of these policies. Back then it was just the two, and we use them. And again, we've got a life lesson on what I call our legend, because I stick it out with the L's: leveraging liabilities, land, legacy, L's, right? So our legend video in the life lesson series kind of shows some of these things, but we used our policies for things like paying off the debt was where we started. But then when we were taking trips somewhere and we wanted to fly me, you, Jacob, Josiah across country to go get on that 7-day cruise to Alaska, we got those flights with policy loan money. Mm-hmm. Or whether it was, we had a family need pop up, sibling this, sibling that, things that we're doing together as an extended family, cover that. Did a few things there, which was really neat. So we've used the policies for lots of different things in those first few years. We did end up getting a few more policies, like on our children, for example. So anything that you remember from that point in time to where, okay, we've been doing the infinite banking for a while. You see death benefit going up. You see that we're using money for multiple uses. Now, we would still done all the things that we've done over the years, whether it's paying taxes or like whatever it is. Other business ventures, whether it's we're stepping into real estate for the first time. Anything stick out in your mind from those times?
Not specifically, other than just over time, seeing the policies being used and seeing what they look like over the years. I'm just no longer in the skeptical realm as much as seeing where you basically began with your knowledge of what it could be.
Okay, so are you saying that the more even that I educated myself, that made you more comfortable? Or am I not repeating that well?
No, actually seeing all being done. And I mean, yes, I mean, that came from you educating yourself and actually using the policies for how they could be used and growing them, and that way, thus getting more policies. And
all right, so for you then, the highlights would be you see legacy going up, protection, security, death benefit, no matter what, from the beginning. That's a highlight for you?
Correct.
And another highlight for you is just doing it, using the policies. You were going to pay for things you said anyway a moment ago, and now you're using the policies to still do that stuff, but it has these other advantages.
Correct.
Any other highlight for you? Not that those aren't great.
Just being able to have the money set aside when it is time to buy plane tickets to get to go on a 7-day cruise kind of thing, that it is there for multiple reasons.
Yep. So James Nethery's not a new name to you. You hear me talk about him. He very often says premium is the solution. Like what makes all this happen for us or anybody else that implements the concept? Premium. Premium gets you that security. Premium creates that legacy. Premium creates that compounding pool of capital for you to have access to do the things that you wanted to do. It's premium at the forefront of all that makes that possible. And we did continue to ratchet up, even if you were iffy along the way or skeptical or hesitant along the way, we did continue to ratchet up. I was telling some guys earlier today on a phone call, at this point, having done this for 10 years, and this isn't a brag, and it's like people have paid more premium, people have done more in infinite banking than we have because they've been doing it longer, right? And people have different come-froms. People have done less. So I'm not trying to make a comparison here, but I'm trying to say that for me, in one of our family meetings here recently, I got to point out that by this time, we've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in premium over the past going on 10 years now. That's wild to me.
Sure, very.
What do you think about that? When I mean, you've probably heard me say it one time because I feel like I brought it up at a recent family meeting where I'm showing, okay, here's our family banking system, here's our system of policies, and here's the total. Hundreds of thousands of dollars paid.
It's a big number.
Right?
Yes.
It's neat. It is and it isn't. I mean, it's like, but for us, and that's where I think everybody should be is, are you better this month than you were last month, this year than you were last year? And that's something I wish I'd have done earlier, was documented even more. And thankfully we have documented things like the debt payoff, or like we use this money in our family for this, or we've got these pictures of that trip that we used a policy loan for. That's so neat, so cool. And we did a bunch of other trips. Mm-hmm. Is that maybe your favorite way to use money from policies? Or no?
Yes.
Well, I bet it is. I bet it is experientially. But I remember now one of the highlights that I think I heard you say earlier, which was when you saw that we paid something off. That's a win, isn't it?
Yes.
And I feel like more particularly for you and other people. Like I feel like people appreciate certain aspects of becoming your own banker more than other aspects. For you and many people, paying something off, it's a big win. Big psychological win. Mm-hmm. It's a big financial win, no question about that, but it's a big psychological win. I love it. I love it. So we've been doing infinite banking now for going on 10 years. First exposed in 2015. At the time of this recording, it's 2025. We've been implementing this concept for going on 10 years now, a decade. We've paid significant premiums. We've used our private family banking system in many, many different ways. Where are you at now? How do you reflect on it now? And I said this to you before we hit record. You know, my anticipation is that we'll watch this later in life, perhaps. Our children will watch this later. Our grandchildren or great-grandchildren or beyond that will not get to know us personally will really hopefully get to watch this and catch on to this idea of financial independence and autonomy and keeping more money in the family and doing more together as a family to include finances. But we're 10 years in. How do you reflect on it now? What questions do you have now? What excites you about infinite banking? Looking forward to think of, well, actually, when you look back at the past 10 years, it's kind of amazing to see what we've done. Who knows what's in the next 10 years? But where does your mind take you?
Well, obviously, I'm happy that I went along with it and that we are here 10 years later and have the policies that we have. Definitely hope going forward we can get more and expand everything. But it's also very exciting to see how the policies mature and everything past the 10-year mark too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's neat for me to think about what could even be possible over the next 10 years. And this is where Nelson's principle of rethink your thinking can come into play, because there's always another level. But then also the tactical stuff of, I want more policies on me. I want more policies on you. We are going to want more policies, as many policies as we can get on our children while they're minors. Mm-hmm. Because once they enter into adulthood, they're going to be eligible for owning their own policies, getting their own policies on themselves, but then they're also entering the workforce, and then they're going to be gauged on, well, how much can you have, right? Because you're an adult now, mm-hmm. right? So there's that aspect of it, but then there's also the aspect of, well, how much can we accomplish, though, between now and then? Because Jacob's 11 and Josiah's 9 and Lana is 5. And how much more can we accomplish now on all fronts, on the educational? I mean, everybody's here with me in the office today because we are recording together, because they have been doing, homeschool and lunch in the other room. And it's a lot of fun for me because they're here with me. Like Lana said, Daddy, we're with you. When we're driving here this morning, Daddy, we're with you. You don't have to miss us, or however she worded that. So precious, so good. But hopefully giving them a different educational foundation than where we started, of just, hope things work out. Work hard. Put money here, put money there. It's always at risk. It's always inefficient when you're not your own banker. Banking is a function. It exists. Either you own it and control it and profit from it, or someone else does. Period. Then sure, you could throw in taxation, you could throw in inflation, you could throw in litigation, you could throw in all the shuns that are against us financially. And education is just such a big piece for me to bring them up. Is there anything that you've thought about while we've been talking that you think should be mentioned, or you wished I would have asked, or you wish that folks would know, no matter where they're at?
I don't think so.
Well, if you can't think of anything, I've got rapid fire questions.
Okay.
But I'm about to let you off the hook. This is going to be fun. All right, darling. I've recently added these rapid fire questions into the mix, right?
Okay.
And if you want, you can ask me them right back, because nobody's had that chance to. So if you want to do that, fine. I'll give you my answer too, right?
Okay.
But the people want to know, what's a favorite hobby of yours?
Hiking.
See, I could easily say that one, but if I had to say a different one, woodworking. What's the most impactful thing someone ever told you? This would be a really good chance for you to say something that I told you. No, say whatever comes to your mind. That was a secondary funny thought. Well, there was once this great man, valiant man. One of the most impactful things you were ever told.
I don't know.
Oh, you got to come up. I can't let anybody else off the hook with that. You got to say something.
You can edit it out. Give me another question.
All right, well, you got to promise to think on that one. It's a good question, I feel like. I'll give you some softballs, okay?
Okay.
We'll warm up to some more. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Picnic or restaurant?
Picnic.
Sword or hammer? No, that's for somebody else. Never mind. Oh, this is like a win-win for a husband. I wrote this. I don't think I've asked anybody this yet. This is going to be good. This is going to be good and good for me. Flowers or potted plant?
Potted plant.
I'm just kidding. I know all these. Fire pit or movie?
Fire pit.
Okay, this is going to be a fun question. Not that I haven't asked it, but it's a good chance to ask a fun question again anyway. What's one of the most interesting places you've ever visited?
That's a hard one. Been a lot. Grand Canyon.
Awesome. I mean, that's why I tried to give you the one of the, 'cause we've been to a lot of places. Countries and states. Oh, we visited most of the states. We're down to a few. Need to knock them off the list. Cool. I agree. I feel like the Grand Canyon is one of those places that you could visit and revisit, and it's not going to lose its awe. It's not going to lose its grandeur. What characteristic do you value most in someone?
Honesty.
Love it. Lucky for you, too. Recent favorite book, podcast, movie?
Counting Miracles by Nicholas Sparks.
Is that a book?
It's a
Okay.
book.
I recognize the author title, but okay. Neat. All right. And then this one from our boys. Would you rather be able to breathe underwater or fly?
Fly.
Fantastic. That was easy for her. I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the prettiest episode ever.
Mm-hmm.
Our grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren appreciate you for it. I really appreciate you for it. It has been really cool, neat to have been doing this for some years now. And then we're just getting something recorded for the general public. We have recorded some things. I would encourage folks to record stuff for posterity, but prosperity too. Prosperity and posterity. Consider that. I mean, just think back, to, we have some pictures of our grandparents, maybe maybe, right? What if you could watch, them sit down and talk for an hour about anything? How neat would that be? How valuable would that be to you? So I really appreciate it. This has been the prettiest one, the coolest one. For everybody that's listening, thanks for spending this time here with us. If you have questions, feel free to put them down in the comment section. I'll answer those. Maybe we could convince Lauren to come back for a future episode.
Probably not.
Probably not. But if you do really have questions about what it could look like for you to implement infinite banking into your family, if you want to live and leave a lasting legacy, then you can find us at durhamtalents.com. This has been a great pleasure for me. Hope you have a great day. Take care.
Hey, can I not do this?
You got to do it.
Can I go home now?
No.
Why? Then why not?
Yeah. You're going to be able to get to your tea okay? I want you to be able to enjoy that. I definitely am going to want to be able to hear you, but without blocking you. Thank you.